Here it is, the man, Brett McKay. A lot of you guys have probably heard of his site, artofmanliness.com. Writer, blogger, podcaster, everything. This guy seems to be dipping his toes into every single type of, writing, speaking, whatever. So let's welcome Brett McKay to the podcast, man. Thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me, AJ.
We were just talking before I hit record about, you said you're in the middle of a pretty intensive deal on depression. What exactly does that entail, and is that for blogs for your site?
Yeah, so on the site for the past month, I've been doing a series about depression, kind of geared more towards men, because men get depressed, but they don't really like to talk about it because we're guys. We don't like to talk about, we don't like to admit when we're feeling down or whatever. But it's a big problem because the statistics show that men commit suicide more often than women. Not only do they commit suicide more often, they go through with it. Because women often use like overdosing or, cutting themselves, and usually they can get saved before they actually die. Men typically use gunshots, right? And so, yeah, I mean, it's a serious thing, and we've had a lot of readers over the years, say, hey, yeah, it's something I'm struggling with, and I don't know where to, go for this, and if you have any advice. So I basically just delved into it, looked into the history of it, what's different in men with depression than compared to women, and then what you can do about it.
Did something like Robin Williams taking his own life, did that kind of spur this, or what?
No, I mean, honestly, it's something like I've struggled with depression in my own life. It runs in my family. When I was a senior in high school, I had a really serious depressive episode where, we went to a really bad place, right? Just felt like crap for months. I even started thinking about, suicide. But thankfully I had a supportive family, supportive friends, and I was able to get through it. And I've just sort of been kind of not like the most outgoing guy in the world. I wouldn't say you would call me chipper. I'm not like an Eeyore or anything, but it's something I've struggled with, and I just wanted to just share my experience and what's worked for me.
Now, it sounds like you're pretty open about it. Were you that open about this depression and everything when you were going through it a senior in high school, man, that's pretty crazy to talk about. That's pretty progressive stuff if you're going to be confiding in your family and friends with that kind of stuff.
Sure. I mean, it was, what happened was, again, it ran in my family. I'd seen other family members we had visits from the black dog, is what Winston Churchill calls it. He had depression too. That's what I like to call it, my black dog.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it went on. What happened is one of the things that can cause depression, there's a million things that could cause it, is just like a lot of stress. And I had just gone through a period of extreme stress, and then I just got into this funk where I just felt like crap. You just like didn't want to get up, didn't want to do anything. And what really made me open up was, I was driving home from work one night, and that's when I started thinking about, guns, thinking about things I could do. And that's like, man, something's wrong here. This isn't good. So I just went to my parents, like, something's wrong with me. And that was that. And I started getting some help. I didn't go see therapy or anything. I just not because I didn't want to or anything. It's just, I don't know, I didn't have time, or I don't know what it was. But just talking about it and just sort of taking a break from some stuff that was going on in my life helped out a lot. And then I had some friends that helped out too.
And so now you're writing, or you're researching, like, why is it? I feel like it's almost like a thing where you can't, where people, it's like almost like addiction. You know how people talk about that, where it's the whole question, where if you talk to any doctors, they say it's a disease. It's like someone, you wouldn't say someone that has heart disease is faking it, or is just get over it, buddy. It's not like that. Is that like the stigma that you're trying to at least get out there, that this is like a real thing that we got to deal with?
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, one of the things that I did, one of the articles I did, I explored the history of depression, and there's been recordings of like depression since like ancient Greece, right? And what's interesting is that in the West, at least, our approach to depression has changed over time, but it sort of stayed the same. On the one hand, you had one school of thoughts that said that, well, it's just a thing in your head. It's the way you're thinking. And if you can correct your thoughts, if you can get the right philosophy, right, that's what the Stoics would say, that's what the ancient Greeks would say, then you would be able to cure you would no longer be depressed. But then you had this other school of thought that said, well, no, it's something in your brain. It's like there's an imbalance in your body that you need to take care of. And in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, and in medieval times, there was this idea that you had humors in your body. And if you had too much black bile, so basically, I don't know what they thought black bile was, but if you had too much of it, you got what they called melancholy. And the way to cure it was you had to take, some herbs or some type of remedy, and you would, some of the other stuff weird stuff they would do. They make you vomit. They would do bloodletting. That probably killed more people than the whatever. But yeah, you still see that today. So today, it's just the same thing but different. Today it's there's a school of thought that say that depression is primarily a disease in the brain where you have an imbalance of serotonin or a neurotransmitter. Then you have another school of thought that says, well, no, it's actually just you have wrong thoughts, and if you go to therapy and you can correct those thoughts, then you will no longer be depressed. And the real answer is that I found is that no one really, it's a complex thing, right? It's a mixture of genes, it's a mixture of your history, it's a mixture of your thoughts, it's a mixture of bad lifestyle, right? Like if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're too stressed, and all those can come together and bring on depression. Yeah, genetics plays a part. Some people are more susceptible than others. Some people will never get depressed in their life. Some people, for whatever reason, they are. So, yeah, there is a stigma around it, and I was hoping with the post that I could say, look, this is something that people have been struggling. It's like a part of the human condition, and great men have had it. Winston Churchill, Jack London, Mark Twain. I mean, there's a whole host of famous men or Abraham Lincoln's another great example. That guy, man, he was just an Eeyore. Like, he was super sad. Like, you read his diary and he's talking about he's the most miserable man in the world. Before he got married, he said he wanted to die. It was rough. But I think because of their depression, kind of gave them an inner strength that helped them in their careers outside of life. So,
wow, with a dude like Abe Lincoln, did you see the movie Lincoln, Daniel Day-Lewis?
I haven't seen it yet. I've been wanting to.
Yeah, I'm sure people mention it if he was depressed before he got married. His wife was struggling. In that movie,
yeah,
man, it would have been rough because they lost a son, I guess.
Yeah.
And so she just never really got over it, and so he was always trying to console her, and she just couldn't fight it. And you sympathize with her. I know you're a parent. I have 2 kids myself. I sympathize with her, but I'm like, gosh, man, this dude is trying to run the country, trying to free the slaves, and she's just killing him at home every night. Like, it was tough, man. He didn't have an easy life, that's for sure.
No, for sure. And that happened even before the presidency. She, Mary Todd, had a history of, they thought she might have been bipolar. That's what the researchers, because before you got into presidency, man, she just railed on him all the time, yelling, and then she'd get in a funk, and it was just, but he did what he did.
I don't know how we even got started on that before. It's just because we were talking off we weren't recording, but I mean, that's cool, man. That's your latest project you've been working on, and I think anyone that if they don't know your name, they know the website and they know your writing. They've at least heard of the Art of Manliness, just in passing, whatever. Because you're referenced in a lot of different things, like articles you might come across or whatever. They'll cite and some of your writings and whatever. Would you consider yourself a writer first?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, that's primarily what I do. The podcast and the YouTube stuff supplements the writing. But yeah, the content, the text content is first and foremost the primary purpose of the site.
And are you a lawyer?
I went to law school and I graduated law school. But here's the thing. So I started the Art of Manliness while I was in law school, just as a hobby. Like, this is the thing. Like, this wasn't supposed to be my career. Like, I was going to be an attorney and make, work downtown, be awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Johnny Cochran, like him.
Yeah, Johnny Cochran. That's right. Don't fit. Must quit.
For all, well, yeah. If if this is a younger crowd that listens, to
Yeah,
this, they don't even know Johnny Cochran. But
they don't even know Johnny.
How old are you?
I'm 32.
Okay, yeah, I'm 31. We're saying, yeah, we're right. It's good.
Yeah.
I still remember watching the OJ chase.
I do too.
I came back to my buddy's house. We were roaming the streets because everyone's power went out in Ohio when I was there. And we came back and we thought it was like a joke. When the TVs came back on, we just saw the white Bronco driving down the highway. Yeah. It's so vivid, man. And I remember that was the first big trial, really, I feel like, that they showed on TV or that people actually cared about watching.
Yeah. And I remember, like, I was in, like, science class, and we had a TV, and my teacher turned it on.
For the verdict?
Yeah, for the verdict.
Oh God! How did that go? People flipping tables and throwing books.
Yeah,
and other people hugging. I guess
it was kind of underwhelming. Like, okay, well, all right.
Yeah, all that, and now it's over. I was more disappointed that there's nothing to watch on TV anymore because I looked forward to that when I got home from school of checking it out. I did the same thing with the Jodi Arias case. If you're not, if you're aware of that.
Oh yeah, that was pretty nuts too.
Yeah, that was whatever. But when you say you started this in law school. Did you start it like you said, like basically just as a hobby?
It was a hobby, something to do to have a creative outlet when I was taking a break from contract law and studying about criminal procedure. And what happened was, basically why I started it was I was tired of the men's magazines that were out there and the men's lifestyle content. Because it was just, it's all about six-pack abs. Like every magazine, like how to get six-pack abs.
They airbrush them on after they take the picture. That's what
airbrush them on. Yeah, that's what you do.
Yeah.
And like selling a lifestyle that like the average guy couldn't afford. Like I couldn't afford it. Like as a broke law student.
Nobody. I don't think anybody can afford the lifestyle that they try to portray on that.
Yeah. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to start the men's magazine I want to read. So that's what I did with the Art of Manliness. And what I found out is that a lot of other guys felt the same way that I did. Right? They were tired of the stuff that was put out there for them. And people started checking out the site, word of mouth. And by the time I graduated from law school, I had published a book based off of the site, had developed enough of a following, and has generated enough revenue from advertising and whatnot that I could make this my full-time thing. So I had this choice, right, when I graduated law school: take the bar exam, become an attorney, or take this route and see where it goes. And I decided to go see where this whole Art of Manliness thing went, and here we are. And I graduated in law school in 2009, so it's 6 years later almost. So,
and where do you envision it going? Do you have a 5-year goal, 10-year, all that garbage that people talk about?
No, I really don't. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing, right? I have no ambitions for world domination and have my own high-rise building with Art of Manliness at the top, right?
Yeah.
I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. I actually kind of enjoy being small, working from my home, because it gives you a lot of flexibility. When you get huge, you kind of get handcuffed in a lot of ways, and it becomes more bureaucratic. And I kind of like doing my thing from my home here in Tulsa.
Is there other people other than, I know your wife writes now with you. Do you have other people on the staff too?
Yes. So my wife and I, she edits, she does some writing too. We collaborate with each other on some content. We have a guy based in Denver who works for us full time, does editing, writing, some administrative things. But then we have a whole bevy of contract people. So we have I have a podcast editor, I have a video editor out in California, I have an illustrator who does a lot of this great hand-drawn stuff for us. He lives in New Mexico. Style writer, other contributing writers. So yeah, what's been great too is that these were people who were fans of the Art of Manliness, and they said, hey, look, I want to help in some way. And so they, volunteered their service for something, and they were like, hey, this is really great. We want you to do this we want to pay you for what you're doing. And that's how they become part of our team. So it's been great is that I haven't had to like do any recruiting. It's just been people naturally coming to us. So it's been awesome.
Now, like contributing writers, I always wonder about that. So say someone's a contributing writer for your site or any site. Like I have friends that write for different like sports sites or whatever, and they'll write like somewhat consistently, you know, maybe every couple weeks or every week. And I always wonder, I haven't asked him, like, do you get paid for that? Like, if you're just like a contributing writer, what do you say? Like, okay, here you go. You get $200 if you write me a blog post or something.
Yeah. So we have regular ones who do it for us like every other month, and we pay them. And we have a flat rate, and then we have like a bonus for like social media shares, right? So if something does particularly well, you know, you're going to get compensated for that. And then we have guys who just like they want to contribute because they want to promote their own website, get their name out there. And you know, I've offered to pay them. Like, no, I don't want your money. I just want to be able to like have my name at the bottom of the post and link to my site. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine.
And so do you have guys that come out that you have to turn down because their stuff is just doesn't work? I'm sure you get all kind of submissions that people want on your site and it's just terrible.
Yeah. I mean, we get lots and lots of submissions, and we turn down about 99% of them because the thing is, like, we only publish one, like at most 2 articles a day. Usually it's just one. So we're not a content farm. We're just cranking out 150 articles a week. You're gonna get 7 a week, but they're gonna be awesome articles, right? Yeah. So yeah, we have to say no a lot, and that's been tough to learn how to just tell people no, like this isn't good, sorry. But you have to. It's part of being an editor, and you have to just respect your readers. But the stuff that's easy to say no to is just when people like they just want to promote themselves, right? And they're like, here's this article, and it just sucks, and it's just about their crappy online fitness course that you can buy for $75, and it's just like, this is crap, dude. Like, go get a real job.
Go to law school. That's the cool thing about. I mean, it's the downside of having all these avenues for content. There's so much content out there. Obviously, the internet is kind of flooded with. It's awesome because there's so many ways to get your stuff out now. Like there's no excuse now for a band to be like, I just don't know how to. I can't get my stuff anywhere. Anybody in the world can have a YouTube channel, can have anything where you just put a Facebook account. If you're good, eventually you're going to pick up some steam. So that's the awesome part about it. On the flip side, guys like you that run cool sites and work for it, you got to sift through a lot of stuff, I'm sure, to find the couple good ones you can kind of partner with and actually use.
Yeah, for sure. That's true.
I see that. It's always like it'll always be there, I think, where I always wonder, like, when is the tipping point to where there's too much content out there? Like, do you ever see that happening with, or is it already in the process with? I just think of it with podcasts because I listen to a lot of different podcasts. I'm like,
oh yeah,
and it's always like the joke. I've heard Kevin Pollak, the actor and comedian, has a podcast, and he says it's the modern day jury duty. Like, you come on my podcast, I come on your podcast. He always says that now. That's in all these, like, especially like actors and celebrities, they do that to where they feel like they gotta, like, all right, well, if I go on this guy's, then he's gotta come on mine. And then I'm like, I don't know. It's weird. Like, do you notice that because in the writing world it's different because there's all kind of writing out there and different sites. I don't claim to be a decent writer. I try to every once in a while, but I leave that to the professionals like you. Do you see, I don't know, do you see it getting too saturated at some point to where nobody can stand out?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this has happened in the blog sphere. Because like when I first started out blogging, that was in 2005. And that's when like this idea that you could make money from your blog posts, like before like 2005, blogging was just something you did, right? You had an online journal, a Zynga. Was that what they were called? Like Zyngas?
I've heard of that. I didn't know if that was for blogs or not.
Yeah, it was like a blog where you just and there's like Blogspot where you could just write, whatever. But then people started putting out actually good content, and then advertisers were willing to pay like banner advertisement stuff, right, for your content. And then so like there's like this just mad rush. Like 2006, 2007, 2008, everyone was trying to start a blog and make money blogging, right? That was the dream. And yeah, in that it got super saturated. Like, and now it's to the point, and it's kind of leveled out. Now it's really hard to enter in and like actually make a living blogging now because things are sort of established already. Like the big guys, who started in 2005, like they're still around, they're still big, and it's just really crowded now. And you're seeing the same thing with podcasting. And podcasting's weird, man. So like I started my podcast in 2009, and I did it because it's like, I don't know, okay, it was something to do. And at that time, podcasts were like kind of hot. Everyone was like doing like, podcasts are cool. You get started a podcast. And so I did it, but the thing was like I never got really any feedback on it. And it seemed like just like less and less interest. And then I would say about a year and a half ago, like just podcast exploded. Like it got really, really hot. Now, like you were saying, like everyone, like my joke is like everyone and their mom has a podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And it's the same sort of thing that's happening, that happened with the blogs, 9, 8 years ago, 7 years ago. Everyone's trying to, cash in on and get in, like get that first, it's basically a gold rush, right? If you get there first and establish an audience really fast, a big one, then you're probably going to be set for a while. But yeah, I mean, one thing I think you can do to stand out is avoid that whole incestual podcasting thing where you're like, hey, if you come on my podcast, I'll be on your podcast. Because yeah, you're right. Like I listen to quite a few podcasts, and you end up hearing the same people on all the podcasts.
Especially if they're promoting like a book or a movie. I mean, that's how people promote stuff. So, but yeah, they'll go on like a podcast tour.
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
Tony Robbins did that for his book, which I give him credit. I mean,
he did awesome.
50-something, whatever, and he's smart. Like he knew, like, hey, this is like I'm not going to go on all these local FM radio shows.
They don't do anything, man.
Yeah, so he was. I thought it was a genius move by him. Obviously, it was a lot more effort because he's doing sit down like 30-minute to an hour interviews with people, but it was awesome.
Yeah, he was on my podcast. And,
I didn't even know that, man. I didn't do my prep there. How was that, man? I had Lewis Howes on here and asked him when he interviewed Tony, like how did he strike you? He's like a unique individual.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, super cool guy. He knows his stuff. He's smart and he's charismatic. It was a fast one though, because like I think he got bumped behind because he was running late on some other interview, so it was about 30 minutes long.
I mean that's but which is great for a guy like him. I mean, 30 minutes of his time is a lot of money. Worth a lot.
For sure. And yeah, that's the thing with online stuff. It's so great compared to like mainstream media. You get a lot more. There's a lot more bang for the buck as far as promoting your. It's more because like here's the thing. I've been on NPR, like Talk of the Nation. Supposedly has 12 million listeners, right? And as soon as I've been on CNN, I've been featured in the New York Times, and every time that's happened, I always check my site, like, oh man, traffic's gonna come pouring in, and like, nothing. Like, there's not a blip, nothing happens. But if I get linked on, Reddit, or if I get linked on Lifehacker, if I get linked on some, if Tim Ferriss sends a tweet out, and it, links to one of my blog posts, like, there's a huge spike in traffic. So yeah, online, I think the reason why it's better for or just promotion is that it's actionable. People are at their computer, right? And then they can immediately do something after they hear or read something about you. But if you're listening to NPR on your car and the radio, there's nothing you can do. And by the time you get home, you forget, what they were talking about. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to promote yourself, like podcasts, blog posts, that's the way to do it.
Oh, and especially the guys like the established monsters. And I mean, I almost reference him every time on my podcast, like Joe Rogan's podcast is what got me into everything. And he has, like Joe, I mean, you never know exact numbers, but he talks about like his are every episode's 3 hours long, which is just crazy to think of. But he gets like almost 1 million downloads per episode they're talking about, and who knows if everyone's that way or whatever. But they always talk about on there, like he always says to different guests, like he's like, you're gonna go on these. He's like, more people are gonna see you and hear you on Joe's podcast than if you went and did probably Good Morning America, and people watching Good Morning America are gonna be 60-year-olds and my parents that aren't gonna care about.
They don't care.
They're not gonna go look up your site or look up whatever you're talking about unless it's it's just the demographic you're going for and everything. It's like, I don't know, it's just changing. The whole landscape's changing, and I think it's cool to see. It's cool to to watch it happen, because who knows, like in 10, 20 years, when we look back, I'm like, man, do you remember when people like got in their car and listened to morning radio shows? Like,
yeah.
And I mean, there'll always be a place for that, but it'll be a different way to get it. You know, it's all on demand, and I mean, I talk about this all the time on here. That's like my thing that I just can't understand when I see people sitting there and watching like the weatherman on the local news telling us what's going to happen, or the news telling us something, breaking news. I'm like, no, it happened like 12 hours ago, buddy.
Yeah.
You guys just went on the air at 6 a.m. the next day.
That's right.
So that's
get on Twitter.
Yeah, like I talked about on here. I was had Rob O'Neill proclaimed shooter of Bin Laden, and he said he was the guy that shot him in the head and twice in the chest, one in the head. And he said, I don't know if you remember when that happened, like when the helicopters were flying in, a kid was on Twitter right by like the compound saying, wow, a lot of helicopters, some kind of weird, crazy action going on around here. I don't know why they're here. Like twittering about the Bin Laden raid. Like,
that's crazy.
Like that's just shows you right there. Come on, man. Like things move a little, things happen instantly now, and we all know instantly. So I don't know. I want to be a little tiny part of it. That's why I like reading stuff like that you put out, and all your like your podcasts are interesting too. Like you talk to cool people, and you it's like people that do really. I forget one of the most recent ones that I listened to. It was the guy the biographer for the old fighter pilot that kind of rewrote the rules on how to fly or what to handle.
Yeah, that was Robert Coram. He is the biographer of John Boyd. And John Boyd, if you guys haven't heard of this guy, he is probably one of the most interesting, fascinating people that hardly anyone knows about. I mean, he revolutionized warfare, and some people say that he is the greatest military strategist since Sun Tzu, who wrote The Art of War back in ancient China. Basically, he was this Vietnam or Korean War pilot, and he basically came with this theory that he came with a whole bunch of things. He did a lot of research and development that led to the development of our modern day fighter jets, the F-15 in particular. But then he also developed this whole idea of thinking about warfare and strategy, and it was called the OODA loop, and it's OODA, and it stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. And basically his argument is that in every conflict, two competing it could be armies or individuals, have an OODA loop going on. And whoever can complete their OODA loop first, right, who can go observe, orient, decide, act, will win the conflict. That's that's the most simplest way to put it. The thing is, it's much more complex and much more nuanced than that. And man, there's been research papers and books written about this. But what's interesting about this guy, like, he was super smart, but he was like the crustiest, meanest old man. You did not want to mess with John Boyd. Like he'd smoke cigars all the time, and he would butt heads with generals in the Pentagon, and he would just take a cigar and just punch it in some general's tie and like burn his tie. He would just call people just terrible names. And he lifted weights in the morning, and he had these calluses on his hands, and when he was in meetings with high-level officials, he'd bite his calluses and spit them out. And that's just the kind of guy he was. And but yeah, he's just super interesting. But yeah, Robert Coram wrote a great biography. It's called Boyd, the fighter pilot who changed the art of warfare. So go pick it up. It's a fascinating read. It's just a really cool read.
I haven't got to read the book yet because I just recently, a couple days ago, actually listened to that, and I was like, man, why don't more people know about this? And it's partly because of like the things you just said. He wouldn't play by their rule. Like he was going to stick to he was going to be who he was, and he wasn't going to kowtow to these dudes and
exactly,
and network and try to play the game to get to the top. So he couldn't get like promoted like he probably should have. But like you said, he changed the face of, he changed how we handle conflict. Yep. But that's is that a thing you guys talk about on the site, that where like is there a fine balance between sticking with your, how people always go, I'm gonna be me, I'm not gonna change, I'm gonna stick to my morals or stick to my guns, and then that, is there like a hard way to find a balance between that and also like playing the game a little bit to get your info out, to get your ideas out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, John Boyd, he 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 gave this speech to Air Force Academy cadets, and he gave it frequently. It was called the to be or to do speech. And basically, in a nutshell, it says in life, you've got two choices. You can either be somebody or do something.
That's
Right?
awesome. That's great. I love it.
And so if you want to be somebody, you got to play by the rules. You have to sort of go with the flow, drink the Kool-Aid, because that's how to get along. You got to get along in life, right? Or if you want to do something, sometimes it means you have to buck conventions. You have to say, I don't really care. And it might mean you're going to sacrifice promotions. It might mean you're going to estrange people. But you have to make that choice. And it's a tough one. It's a hard one to balance. For John Boyd, it affected his career. Like, he decided to do something, right? And what was interesting, I asked Corm about this, like what was driving John Boyd? And it was basically he was a patriot that wanted to do the best for his country, and look for truth. But he paid a high price for that. He never advanced past lieutenant colonel. He should have been a general, but he never did. He always got stymied. But his family also suffered in the consequence. This is sort of, people don't realize this, but Boyd, his family lived in poverty pretty much poverty after he retired, because he kept on consulting the military, but he wouldn't take a paycheck for it. And his family, and he wasn't the best husband or father, and his family suffered. And so, yeah, that's one of those things. It's like, if I'm a dad, right? And like, am I willing to make that choice to like do something that affects a whole bunch of people, right? That's something great. That'll be better something great for the nation, but that, my family has to suffer as a result of that. I think every man's going to have to face that question in their life, and how they answer it is going to be different, and it's going to take a lot of soul searching, but eventually there's pros and cons to every one. There's prices that must be paid.
Oh man, that's the way you put it is really it's true, and I hope there's like a balance we could find of a little bit of both. I wonder if did that guy, I don't know why I'm already blanking on his name. What's the pilot's name again?
John Boyd.
John Boyd. Did he ever did they ever say that did he ever have a moment when he was super old and laying on his deathbed where he was like, maybe I should have just gone with the flow a few times? Did he ever have a moment like that?
No. In fact, he kept on. He was continuing to, advance his work, continue his research. Till the day he died, and it was his life's work. And like, he had this philosophy. The reason, like, his family, I don't think his family had to live in poverty, but he forced them to, because he wanted to like not have to worry about money. Right, so they lived in this cramped apartment for a really long time. He had a child that was special needs, and he was with him. His son was with him through his adulthood, and it was tough. It was super, super rough. But yeah, he never compromised on that. Yeah, and for me, like, I'm one of those guys who tries to seek a balance. There's some things that are just hard and fast that I'll never do just so I can get along, right, in advance. But there's other places where there's not, doesn't conflict with my morals, doesn't conflict with the law, doesn't conflict with sexuality, where there's some wiggle room there where you can sort of, change your style a little bit so you can be more approachable or whatever. But yeah, for Boyd, his personality was, his way or the highway, basically.
I love hearing that he didn't ever give in. Even at the end.
Yeah.
That's cool. You got to respect that at least.
Yeah, I'm glad there's people like John Boyd, right?
There has to be. Yeah, there's a place for them. We need them.
Yeah. But yeah, for us, our country is benefited from it. But he paid and his family paid a price for that. So
yeah, that would be the question, is to ask his family, like, was it worth it?
Yeah. I think people have tried to contact his family. I'm not sure I can't speak for them, so I don't know what they say, but who knows?
Yeah, that's the whole balance of everything now, especially with, I don't know. I I think guys like that they're a dying breed for sure. It's hard to find those old, like, I love those old crusty vets that you hear about. You know, they're taking their big thermos of coffee down to the coal mine. They wake up in the morning. I have one of my old coaches, his grandpa. He said his wife would have his grandpa's breakfast laid out for him in the morning before he went to work, and it would be a cup of coffee, a shot of whiskey, and then like 2 fried eggs, and that's what he ate every morning. Like, wouldn't say a word. And like what's crazy and sad, he said the wife died before the husband.
Oh, wow.
He would come out and literally just sit. I guess he really got pretty old, and he would sit there after she died for a couple of weeks at least, and just sit in his spot, like thinking like breakfast is coming and drink is coming, and obviously it wasn't. So I was like, God, that's sad, man. Like,
that's super sad.
And just like anything, you see that a lot. The guy, he ended up dying shortly after she died because he counted on her regardless. I'm sure he's one of those guys that probably never told her he loved her, or didn't show it, but he needed her to live, and those guys. There's something cool about that. I think that we're missing. We don't have around anymore. Maybe it's just everyone is too. It's a good thing, but there's just stuff's too available now. Like it's a good thing that people talk about. I think like how they feel, what they're doing. Like you said, like that whole depression study you're doing. It's cool that wouldn't be happening. 1950 probably.
Yeah. I mean, there is something to be said that it's something we've talked about on the website too. About we've explored what masculinity means, right, throughout time, and
is that like an ever changing? Sorry to interrupt you. Is that ever changing? Yeah. Like throughout, is it always evolving?
Well, here's the thing: there throughout cultures and throughout time, there have been some universals that you find. And how those are expressed might be different in different cultures, but the universals are there. So, like the core of masculinity across time, across cultures, right, is that men are expected to be strong and aggressive, and willing to take on risk, willing to do combat, right, and that's something you find throughout cultures, isn't it? Like there's like a few rare exceptions, which I think those exceptions actually just show how ubiquitous this is, that to be a man means to be courageous, be strong, and be aggressive. And you see this in the argument that we've made, and we've backed this up with as much as we can with research, anthropological, psychological, biology, is that males in all species of animals, except for a few exceptions, are typically more aggressive, more prone for risk taking, are bigger, are stronger than females, and it has to do with basic evolution and sexual selection. Men are expendable, right? We are the expendable gender, and women are not. And the reason why that is because men have just a bajillion sperm, right?
Yep.
Like one man could make a whole bunch of women pregnant, right? But a woman can only have one baby at a time every 9 months, and then she has to take care of that baby. So consequently, cross species, the females have to be they have to be a little more selective about and a little more cautious, because that there's a lot of risk if they go out there into a hunt, right? If they die, or if they die, their baby could die as well because they have it's back at home. Men, on the other hand, if one man dies, that's okay because we got this other guy here who can make a whole bunch of other women pregnant and whatever. So there's a biological underline of why men are stronger, more aggressive, more willing to take risk, right? But then cultures have developed, or different societies have developed cultures of manhood that sort of lie on top of this biological underpinning of masculinity. And that's what we call manhood. So for most cultures, manhood requires a man to be courageous, right? Mm-hmm. In combat, it could be courageous and more in your morals, sort of like a John Boyd, right? Yeah. Requires a man to be strong, and requires a man to be aggressive, being able to be the person, being able to be the initiator in courtship and in war, whatever. So there's that aspect of it. Throughout cultures, men are expected to provide, right? To start a family. So procreate is another aspect of manhood. So, this is throughout cultures where they find, you're more of a man if you can have a lot of kids. So like Genghis Khan would be like the ultra man because he had a ton of kids. And then you're expected to provide for those kids and then protect them using your... So this is something you find throughout cultures. And what the anthropologists have found is that whenever a society is really... When the resources are scarce and things just kind of are rough. So this would be like in a hunter-gatherer society or a traditional tribe. So there's there's still hunter-gatherer tribes living in the world today in like very isolated areas of the world where they're basically living like their ancestors did 1,000 years ago. And in these isolated tribes, man, like you have to, I mean, it's tough. Like there's tribal warfare. And so men are expected to be super tough, super mean, super aggressive, because if they're not, their tribe could die, right? Mm-hmm. They could suffer as a consequence. So there's a need for like a very aggressive type of masculinity, a very aggressive type of manhood. But as societies get more luxurious, get more comforts, manhood is emphasized less, right? So like a great example would be the United States of America. Here in the U.S., most men, we no longer have to protect ourselves for the most part because we live in I mean, crime is bad in some areas, but for the most part, crime has been declining in America for the past 20 years. That's what the research says. We have police, we have militaries who protect us. Men are no longer, it used to be there, that every man had to be willing to go and fight for war. We no longer have a draft, right? We have a voluntary military. Food. You go to the grocery store, you can get meat, nicely packaged. Everything's just handed to you. And as a consequence of that, we really don't emphasize like that sort of aggressive, strong masculinity because we don't really, in a way, we don't need it as much anymore. And I'm talking about culture-wide. Yeah, I mean, going back to that thing about your friend's grandfather, who was sort of the rough and tumble, scrabble, like he had to be tough. He had to be like that because he had to be, right? Yeah. That was his job. He had to go down that mine, and just that was a risky thing. My grandfather, my biological grandfather, he died when my dad was 2 years old in a mining accident. It's a dangerous job, but you had to be tough as nails to do it. And so, like, he was super manly. Like, from the stories I heard, he was sort of like that kind of guy, that super just rough, tumble kind of guy, because he had to be. Mm-hmm. Now, you fast forward today, like, I live in suburban Tulsa, Oklahoma. Life's pretty good. I got a Whole Foods across the street. I can get my organic yogurt and beef, and there's really not any crime around here. And so I don't have to be like super aggressive, and I don't have to be, but I choose to like, I lift, I try to learn combatives. Cause like, I don't know, I like that stuff. It makes me feel good. It scratches an itch I have, but I don't have to. It's like not necessary in a way.
Yeah. Not necessary to survive. You're
not necessary to survive. Yeah, exactly.
You are protecting your family and, making a living and doing everything, but you don't have to sit there and hold a shield up and fend off the guys from the next city trying to come and steal your wife.
Exactly. So I mean that's kind of
so you're saying like it's almost our choice now to become like or to like I don't know dig into some of the roots we have that's in our DNA and less guys are choosing to get to like I don't know act on those. That primal DNA we have?
Yeah, that's kind of the case we made. I wrote this article. It's not an article. I mean, it's on the blog, but it's basically like this length of a book. It's called Semper Virilis, and Semper Virilis means always manly in Latin.
You got that on shirts, don't you?
I have a shirt. I think it says Semper Virilis. Yeah, we got T-shirts.
Oh yeah, I've seen them. They're good, man. I'm sure they're nice and soft and feel good.
Oh yeah.
While you're lifting, while you're squatting. I also like the video of you squatting with the dude.
Mark Ripito.
I love that dude. He keeps smacking your lower back.
Yeah.
It's all about that back. All about
Get drop, Brett.
Yeah, he's great. He's like the prototype you would draw up for a movie if you needed a guy to teach you how to lift and be a man.
No, yeah, he wrote a great book called Starting Strength. If your listeners haven't checked this book out, check it out. It's the best book if you want to get into weight training. Okay. You'll find. But yeah, I mean that guy. He's from Wichita Falls, Texas, so not too far from here. And he just reminds me of like my old high school football coaches, just that, just politically incorrect and just yelling at you, but in a friendly. I mean, you feel good when he yells at you. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a choice. Like it is, you have a decision to make whether you're going to scratch that itch, kind of respect your genes, respect your ancestors, right? Your manly ancestors that lived before you, and choose to, choose the manly way, choose the hard way. And I think there's some examples in modernity of men who have done this, right? Who had the choice to kind of go the easy way, the less masculine way, but chose
who
not
would that?
to.
Who would that? Would you have an example of a couple guys? I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's like what? It's not. I mean, it's modern, and if we're looking at the whole scale of history, like Teddy Roosevelt, right, President of the United States. The guy was a badass, right?
Yes.
He
killing animals in the front yard at the White
killing
House,
animals in the front yard in the White House. Like he killed a jaguar, or some kind of mountain lion with his bare hands. He started he wanted to go fight in the Spanish-American War in Cuba, so he got a bunch of like Harvard football players and some like cowboys. Started his own little platoon and like charged San Juan Hill, leading it. He went off into the Badlands of North Dakota, the Dakotas, and like was trying to be like a rancher. What else is this guy? I mean, he went after he was president. He went and explored this uncharted part of the Amazon River and almost died. Got there's like blow darts from like these like traditional tribes trying to kill him. While he was like campaigning for his third term of president on the Bull Moose Party, he's giving a speech, and this guy came up with a gun and shot him right in the chest.
He finished his speech, right?
Finished his speech. He showed the crowd the blood running from his shirt, and said, "I've been shot, but it takes more than that to stop a bull moose." Then he went on to give a 90-minute speech, and then he went to the doctor. It's the kind of man he was. But here's the thing people don't know about him. Teddy Roosevelt. Oh, here's another funny story about Teddy Roosevelt, the kind of guy he was. When he was a young assemblyman in New York, the New York legislature, he got in like some kind of fight, and he got angry at this one other guy, and he took off the leg of a table that was in the legislator room, or whatever, the chambers, and he started going after the guy and says, "I'll kick you in the balls." I mean, that was just like, and that's the kind of guy he was. But here's the thing a lot of people don't know about him, is that he was a sickly child. When he was a kid, he had really bad asthma. The doctors didn't think he was going to make it. The doctors told him he needs to like just rest and don't go outside. He doesn't need to excite himself or he'll die. That was the thing he got. And another thing people don't realize, he came from a very wealthy family.
I did not know that. Wow, that's
his
more
family
surprising.
His family was his dad was a part of a legacy family. I think they owned some kind of glass or window company. I don't know. Anyways, he came from money. His dad was a successful. He was a what's it called? Philanthropist. That's what he basically what he did in New York City. I've actually been to Teddy Roosevelt's birth home. It's pretty cool. But anyways, Teddy Roosevelt had this moment where his dad came to him and said, Teddy, you've done a lot to build up your mind. Teddy, when he was a kid, he was super smart, but his dad said, you need to start building up your body. And so his dad bought him like some medicine clubs, and like built him like a little gym on the roof of their apartment in New York City. And he started working out and started boxing. And he decided, you know what, I'm gonna choose to be a man, basically. He created Teddy Roosevelt in his head. and he went out and into the real world and did it. So he's one of those guys, like, he didn't have to do all this rough and tumble stuff. He didn't have to go and charge San Juan Hill. He didn't have to go search the Amazon. He didn't have to go out into the Badlands and kill mountain lions with his bare hands. But he chose to, right?
Yeah.
He could have lived his life, on Easy Street, being a college professor, working in the assembly, but he chose this sort of virile way. So like he's like my prime example of someone who had a choice to kind of go the easy way or choose like this more manly way. And he's my favorite.
He should be there's so many, I'm sure there's so many stories that we don't even get out about him, a guy like that. But yeah, it makes it even, I think it makes it even more, makes you respect him even more, knowing I didn't know about his upbringing, him coming from like a wealthy family, because you're right. That's pretty rare where a guy will come from all that, and and I don't know, man. He's an interesting dude. I'm actually reading, and I heard you've talked about him on a podcast before. It made me want to even look him up more, because I just know the basics about him, and it made me want to go made me want to research a guy like that even more. Want to know why he was the way he was, and. Yeah, so he's a cool example, I think, of that. But is that the only? So you have this whole. When I first heard of your site, I don't know how long time ago, I honestly, before I went to it, I thought it was gonna be. I'm not trying to be like disrespectful. I thought it was gonna be like a sarcastic site.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, everyone thinks that.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like you're like dead serious, and you got your sweet mustache, and you're serious with your mustache too, aren't you?
I'm the son of a mustached American. My dad had a mustache.
I saw it. Was that your recent deal? When you had a picture of you and your dad on the beach?
I think I might have. Yeah. That was like when I was a baby.
I've read that. Yeah, and you like recreated it with your son or
with my son.
Yeah, it was cool. But I thought the site would be like, oh, maybe it'll be like almost like not a joke, but yeah, you thought you'd be writing like sarcastically, but it's like legit. You started it, like you said, as a project or just a thing to kind of get your creative, what's in your head, to get it out there while you were in law school, and now it's grown into what it is. But you're serious, and it's cool. I know you have a huge legion of fans that follow everything you do, and it's like I don't know. So I was surprised a while back when I went on your site and saw what you were doing. It just wasn't what I expected, I guess, just from the name. Like the name, you think,
sure.
Like, oh, this is like, these guys are messing around. This is going to be really funny. And, like all these, there's a lot of sites like that.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I mean, that's one of the things that's sort of sad about manliness, right? So like when we, I get that response a lot. People, when they first come to the site, they think it's a joke. Mm-hmm. They think like I'm making fun of it, because that's what we don't take manliness very serious anymore in our culture. It's something to laugh at, right? It's like when you say, "Oh, I'm being manly," it means like you're gonna be like Tim Allen, grunting and
build cars and
rebuilding cars and all that stuff. And look, it's fun to do if that's what you like to do. I like to get my hands greasy and dirty. But what I'm trying to do with the site is revive this classical idea of manliness, because I when I went to college, I majored in letters, which is just a fancy way of saying a humanities degree. So part of that took a lot of ancient philosophy, a lot of classes in ancient Greek and Roman history. And one thing I found is that you hear this, they threw around this word manliness a lot, the Greeks and the Romans, and they weren't joking around, right? Like that was something like, they talked about manly virtue, and like we admired his manliness, and it's like, okay, well that didn't mean like Tim Allen ho stuff for these guys. Like what did that mean? So I started exploring that, and for these guys, like manliness meant being a man of virtue. It meant being excellent in all areas of your life. Right, so it meant having courage. It meant having honor. It meant being brave. It meant having strength, both physical and in your character. And that's what it meant to be. That's what manliness meant. And what's funny is that this idea of manliness existed up until about, in the West at least, up until about the middle of the 20th century, and then it kind of became a joke. for whatever reason. It's complex and complicated, so a whole bunch of social factors and economic factors and blah, 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 and I don't want to get into it. Read the website if you want to get into there. But yeah, I'm trying to bring back this idea that's ancient Greek idea that manliness means like being excellent in all aspects of your life in a masculine way. And I know for some people that they're like, that doesn't make any sense. But like, I don't know. I think everyone can sense that in a guy, in a man who has that sort of, like, you look at a guy, I don't know. I've had this moment where you're with some like old dude and you're like, dude, that guy's manly. Like that guy.
Yes.
He's got something about him that's awesome. Like,
you can tell. Like I think a huge part of being manly is being just authentic, whatever that is, whatever you are. Like that's what I think of. Like just be you, man. Whatever it is.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm trying to do with the site. And so yeah, I mean, I'm okay with like people thinking it's a joke at first, but it's awesome when people start digging in and they're like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. Here's the thing too, I want to keep in mind, like we keep it fun too. Like we don't take ourselves too seriously. I like to have fun. So like we'll do stupid content on the site. Like we've had, an article on how to poop like a samurai, which is awesome. And we've had, other stuff like that, like, just fun stuff that guys like to talk about. But then we always come back to that more serious thing, our serious mission of trying to revive this sort of classical idea of manliness.
Well, you guys do a good job of it. Is there any way to give an example? I don't know if you have on the site or not. Could you give an example of someone who has not acted manly at a certain point, or like an example that people would know of, like a non-manly dude? I don't know. Like I don't know how to. I don't know if you like call guys out, or you not call guys out, but or you say like this was. I don't know. Well, I mean, obviously, like a guy like Bin Laden, like pushing his wife in front of him instead of getting shot. But that's a whole different world.
That's a whole different world. We don't really go there. I guess that'd be kind of interesting to go there.
Does it have anything to do with? Do you guys ever get into? I'm sure people ask you. Does any manliness have anything to do with like people's sexual preference? Does that ever change anything?
It never comes up, right?
Really?
Like,
I always wondered if people would think that, like, well, you can't be like. What if a dude's gay? Would someone say he's not manly?
Well, I mean, I would say that. I mean, like you can look through history, and there's like men who were sexually oriented, where they were sexually attracted to other men. That was their sexual orientation. That they were like super manly. Like they were like you didn't want to mess with them. Like, and I don't bring it down to there. I try to keep it pretty high level.
Yeah.
And it's basically like if you can be strong, if you can be useful to your community, if you can have, if you can have that sort of excellence in all aspects of your life, then that's what manliness means. And I know we have readers who are gay, and I've gotten letters from them. They're like, I appreciate you have this site that's not like the other men's lifestyle sites, and I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah, I figured that'd be a question because that's the whole hack line that guys that are it's usually guys that are pretty insecure, like, oh man, this guy he's gonna hit on me or something. People think that like if a guy is gay and he's around anyone that he's gonna hit on them, or like that's like the whole. It's just annoying. I think it's an athlete thing too. I hang out with different athletes and they think like, I'm like, dude, why do you always think like, I don't know, it's just how that's what I started thinking of when I saw some of the stuff that you got on your site, how some dumb buddies I have or acquaintances I have would react talking like that.
We're talking about that.
It's like stupid. Yeah, it's just whatever. It's dumb. It doesn't mean anything. It's not a good hard hitting question or anything. My stupid thoughts.
You're honest. No, it's fine. Yeah, it's a perfectly fair question. It doesn't come up all that often.
That's good. I think it's a good thing, and we're progressing maybe a little bit as a society that it doesn't keep coming up with you, like on your site. But whatever. I'm gonna let you roll here, but I want to just see what do you think. I know you said you just want to keep doing what you're doing. Does that would that entail ever like? Do you ever see like a movie? Writing a movie, doing something, I don't know. Like, what could you branch into that you haven't?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've been in talks with TV people and movie people about taking something from the Art of Manliness and spinning it off into a show, and it always goes nowhere. And
it's got to be on like Showtime or HBO. It can't be on like ABC or something because that would be so stupid and cheesy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing: what's happened with all of them. they've all been really stupid and cheesy, like the ideas they give us. And so I've pretty much taken that off the table, because like I've worked really hard to build up I mean, I hate saying this, like a brand, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want some cheesy movie or some cheesy TV show to ruin that. Because here's the thing with TV and movies, people, like even books, like once you go that route, like you give up a lot of control. Like you do. Like, you know, basically when we sold it, you know, I was in one time in an option agreement with a major TV network to turn our website into a show. And basically all they wanted was the right to use the name The Art of Manliness, and they were just going to go and do their thing, right? Yeah. And thankfully, like, it didn't go anywhere. Like, it just... And so, I mean, I got paid the money for the option. It was kind of nice.
Good for you, man. Well, okay, well, who would... let's just say you... Last question. Let's say you had a movie. Somehow you wrote your own movie and you had complete control. Who would be the main character in a movie like that? Like, who would embody all of... that you think is manly, or you know, gives that, that impression?
You know, like, well, I don't know what kind of movie. Like, the kind of movie I would want to make would be some sort of like rite of passage movie where you had like this young kid who didn't know nothing about being a man, right? And then he got shipped off to like his grandpa that lives in the middle of the desert, has a ranch. And I would love the grandpa to be played by Robert Duvall. He's probably too old now.
Yeah, he'd be good though.
He would be awesome. Like, he'd be awesome for that. I mean, so one of my favorite books of all time is Lonesome Dove.
Yeah.
And he played a character in that called Augustus McCrae. I actually named my son after Augustus.
Oh, sweet.
And he was just awesome. Like, I would just love that sort of kind of character in the movie. So Robert Duvall would be in it. The young guy, I don't know, can he be any like dopey 20 or 30-something-year-old actor? But if Robert Duvall's in it, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, maybe like the kid starts out like it's like Pauly Shore. He hangs out with Robert Duvall, and he becomes like
he becomes a man.
Kimbo Slice, maybe. I don't know. From Paul.
So he starts out as a white guy and becomes like a big gnarly black guy with a beard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know. It's the
like
movies,
that.
Man. It's Hollywood.
It's a movie. You can do whatever you want.
It's Hollywood. That's what I'm saying. You had 100% control, so you didn't have the execs giving you notes. You could write it. It's all yours.
I think that would ruin my Art of Manliness brand if I made a movie like that. So AJ, I'm not going to take advice on that. Sorry.
Thank you. You're a smart man for not taking my advice. That was just off the top of my head. All right, man. Well, Brett, I really appreciate it. People can find you. They can check your website, just artofmanliness.com, right?
That's right.
And what's your Twitter name?
Art of Manliness.
Cool. We'll have that linked up on the video portion for anyone that's watching the video. But really appreciate you coming on, man. I know you're very busy, family man, all around manly man. It's cool, man. I really it's interesting what you're doing. It's cool. I don't know. It's just it's a different like approach than I think a lot of people are taking right now, and you're doing good things over there. So I'm a fan of your work, and I will be checking the site regularly to read your great wisdom you guys come up with, man.
Well, I appreciate it, AJ. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Take it easy.
All right.
Thank you for joining in. Please visit thehawkcast.com, where you can discover the next guest, get a little more information about why this exists, watch past episodes, or link over to iTunes. And tell some friends too, so we can all hear more great stories together.